Good evening, everyone. This is Anoa, and it is 11 p.m. here in Atlanta, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. West Coast. See, it's past my bedtime, but I just had to stay up and do this interview. This is a West Coast California special. I am so honored to be joined by Mr. Stephen Jaffe tonight, who's running for Congress, and it's the 12th Congressional District against Nancy Pelosi, correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. How are you doing this evening, Stephen?
I'm just fine, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you. So you've announced. I mean, I was actually reading an article earlier, and it's like, what type of? I didn't say madman, but they were like, who actually dares to run against Nancy Pelosi? But you do. What made you decide to jump in this race and declare, candidacy when she's held office for I don't even know how long anymore?
It was really a number of factors that led me to the decision. Noel, first and foremost, Bernie Sanders candidate. I'm not a young guy, and I remember every presidential election since Eisenhower Stevenson in 1952. That's how far back I remember.
Okay.
And I do not remember, and I don't think I will, any candidate that ever caught and resonated with me as much as Bernie Sanders did. If I had to invent a candidate to run for president, he probably would have been involved working for Bernie. I worked for him here in California. Then I was recruited by the national campaign, and I went to Nevada, and I helped, as a lawyer, I helped supervise the Nevada caucuses there, which were, as you might recall, chaotic,
yes,
to say the least. And I saw a lot of things there with my own eyes and heard them with my own ears, which Ms. Clinton later denied had ever happened. So I saw them happening in terms of how the primaries, the caucuses in that case, were held. So I came back and I had a fire going about that. Then there was, of course, the emails that came out. What happened then was the Democratic establishment, what I would call it, the Pelosi, Wasserman, Schultz, Clinton faction of the party, when those emails were released, a deal of outrage on their part, been hacked, the Russians behaved about the substance of the emails, what the emails showed had happened. And what the emails showed had happened was they had rigged and cheated Bernie out of it, as far as I'm concerned. So that added us for Bernie a little bit. And then, of course, on November, and we're stuck with this president. So I took Bernie's challenge seriously when he said, stop talking about it, go out and do something, run for something, make a difference. And I thought about it for a couple of months, and here I am.
Awesome. So just thinking about some of, as you've been in the district, as you've announced now, has there been any type of pushback or response so far, to your presence in the race? Or let me back up for a second. How has the response overall been, locally? And I know a lot of folks have been cheering you on nationally so far. I think people are pretty displeased with the direction Pelosi leadership, particularly since the Democrats lost the majority in the House. I know nationally people have expressed displeasure in her leadership, but how has it been locally within the district so far with your entering?
Well, that's an interesting question, because it's my opinion that Ms. Pelosi has sort of forgotten why she's in Congress. And the main reason Ms. Pelosi is in Congress is to represent the people of the 12th Congressional District, which is San Francisco. I mean, she is so well known as a national figure and first the Speaker of the House, then the Minority Leader, that I really feel she is disconnected the electorate here, her own constituents here in San Francisco. One of the reasons I ran is I believe she's vulnerable. Is he not? She's very wealthy and very powerful, and if I were to even come close, that would be considered quite an upset. National.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are So I think you touched on a really important issue.
The response. To answer your question, responsible.
He's right. Wait, you're breaking up for a second, Stephen. Hold on for a second. You're breaking up.
And what's amazing about
Hello?
Yes, I'm right here.
Oh, yeah, you're back. So you were answering the question about what the response has been in the district. You were breaking up just a little bit.
Right. Most of my donations have come from out of state, which is just astounding to me, because as much as I'd like to think it's because they love me, I'm a stranger. Nobody knows me. These are donations of people who are now saying, we don't like Ms. Pelosi in the direction the party's going. So that, the response has been fine. I have over 500 individual donors now, and the campaign's like 2.5 weeks old. It's been very gratifying to me.
Okay, so you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, awesome. There you go. So 2.5 weeks. Oh, so I thought, I figured I knew it wasn't that long, but yeah, 500, that is pretty impressive so far. So, I do have a quick question for you. So for the California Dem chair race, so the question from the chat is, do you support, Kimberly Ellis, for the California Dem seat for chair?
I know I not only support her, I have publicly endorsed her.
Awesome.
Given her money.
Oh, well, I have some California friends who are in the chat who do a lot of work in terms of social media and digital advocacy and stuff like that. So I know that's one of the things that's burning for my California friends right now. Where do people fall on different things? Lynn said kudos. But so thinking about so I know, whether they take you seriously or not. How has the response been? Have you had any pushback? Has anything happened in terms of, you're now putting yourself in this position as running against Ms. Pelosi, minority leader?
The only thing, it's been very positive. The only thing that I would call a pushback, a little incident that occurred last October, long before I decided to announce. I published a Facebook post, which was really kind of a personal observation about how I was feeling that particular evening after one particular event. And in there I put that as an old white guy, I kind of felt uninvited to the party in politics here in San Francisco. I certainly chose the wrong words to express that, and I did get some pushback on that. And my response to that is this: I need to talk about who I am and what I've done, and I think that should answer the question. I'll tell you about a couple of my cases. I've been an employment law lawyer for over 3 decades. I represent people of every race, religion, color, ethnicity, sexual limit I can give you are back in 2012, I represented 6 African American police officers in the Richmond Police Department in a very high-profile race discrimination case in Contra Costa County. And that trial lasted 3 months. It's the longest trial I'm sure I'll ever have, and got a lot of publicity. But I took that case because I felt it was the right thing to do. Another case that got a great deal of publicity was a gender discrimination case where I represented a 30-plus year employee of UPS who had been badly discriminated against on promotions and other things and harassment. To judge me not by the color of my skin or not by color, but by what I stand for and who I am and who I've been. In the race discrimination case, the police chief attended a meeting of the officers, black officers, white officers, Asian officers, and he stood there and he said to people, look, he says, I happen to like people who look and sound like me. And that's what they were up against. So that's who I am. And that's my best response to those who think that they took something from my words last October that I really hadn't intended to mean and obviously expressed poorly.
Well, I think that's a really good point that you just made. I mean, we express ourselves as individuals, as people in the heat of the moment. We get frustrated. We say things. I know your opponent has decades of saying things that have been taken out of context one way or another. And not that there needs to be mudslinging, but I really like how you just, reflecting on, the body of my work speaks for itself and the desire to get back to the issues that matter most to your community. Now, we did have a little bit of audio issues. So Esha actually had a question. She said, what did the police chief say about the 6 black cops? Because I think that part of your story did go out a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was the comment about he likes people who look like him and act and sound like him. People. He was a big, tall white guy with blonde hair. And it's obviously felt that they were not included in his description of the people he liked. So that was part of that case.
Yeah. So thinking about some of the issues that have been important, to you personally, but also some of the things that are really pressing. I know before we started, we talked about San Francisco, creating free community college. What are some of the other issues that are really pressing right now in the community you're looking to represent, and some of the things that you're prioritizing?
Well, I think the big issue of the day until this Russiagate thing got going in the last week, but I think the big issue in the U.S. today, I think, is healthcare. And I am a very strong advocate of single-payer healthcare. It is time for the United States to join the rest of the civilized world and provide for the universal health care of all its residents. It's inexplicable to me why we don't, well, I know why, but it's not a good reason why we don't have it. And this, in fact, we held the first town hall she'd held in 25 years. She reiterated that point, and she also said something which still has me scratching my head, which is she said, actually, Obamacare, which she was defending, she says Obamacare is to the left of single-payer health care. And that's a nonsensical statement, and it's troubling because either she doesn't understand it, how healthcare works, or I don't know how else to explain that comment by her, but she made it.
I absolutely agree. There is actually, there is, of course, the national movement for single payer. There is John Conyers' bill that has been, reintroduced each year in the House. But there's also an effort in California on the state level, and it's just really interesting to see how, even though there's this really strong movement locally, like on the state level for, something better than Obamacare, that leadership like Nancy Pelosi and others are still hesitant. Leaders in Florida are still hesitant to get on board with this effort.
What you want me to tell me? Yeah, I think you're about to ask me, why do I think that is?
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you, why do you think that is, and what do you say to people to get them to understand why they should support your campaign and what this is really all about?
Well, that's two questions. Let me answer them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was going to split them up, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Why? So the first question is, why doesn't Ms. Pelosi support single payer health care?
Yes.
The answer is that she gets tremendous amounts of money from the very institutions which have a stake in not getting single payer health care put into law. Healthcare providers, for-profit hospitals, insurance companies, big farm, they all give her tremendous amounts of money. And they don't want, in exchange for giving her all this money, they don't want her voting in a law which will cost them billions and billions of dollars in profits.
Yeah, definitely. So
I see people asking me if I have a Facebook page.
No, I do.
No,
I'm putting it. Yeah, I'm putting it in the comments as we're talking. I'm multitasking. I'm putting your links and stuff in there too, and then a bunch of people shared your website as well. So you definitely have fans in the chat tonight. But so what are you? So how do you break it down to people and make the case, right? Because she has held the district. She gets overwhelming support when it's time to vote. But how do you begin to chip away and really begin to build an effort, support for your campaign, despite that stranglehold she seems to have on the district?
Well, I think I shine a light on all of the issues right down the line, up and down the line, in which Ms. Pelosi and I are not like each other, and in which my views and my positions are much more reflective of the voters here than hers are. Single payer is one of them. I think the majority of Democratic voters in San Francisco want single payer. She does not. Another one I'll suggest, and something that harkens back to my days as a strong Bernie supporter, I am absolutely in favor of the abolition of superdelegates. They are credit with a big D by Ms. Pelosi and Wasserman Schultz and Ms. Clinton and their establishment folks to hold on to their power. What superdelegates do is really cancel out primary votes. They cancel out primary votes. And you don't have to look back further than last week. There's a big law, as you're a lawyer, there's a big lawsuit going on against the DNC. And in that lawsuit last week, lawyers for the Democratic National Committee, we're talking about May 2017 here, took the position that the DNC has the right to cheat and rig the nomination all they want, and there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. And I am just flabbergasted that they publicly made that argument. And what they're really saying is, we don't care what the primary results are. Why hold the primaries if they're going to rig it and cheat?
Well, isn't that one of the things, though, the lawyer, like tongue-in-cheek, claims that they didn't really mean it, but they could basically just handpick who they want in a back room, and that was perfectly fine. They don't owe people a fair process. And you're right, it is absurd. I think actually somebody was getting ready to ask that question in the chat room, but not that we got to really delve into election law, or anything. The lawyers, Jared and his wife, who have been handling this case, have been doing an excellent job. So I'm sure many people did not actually expect it to make it this far.
Yeah, I think they survived. I think they survived a motion to dismiss. But I think when a Democratic voter goes into a booth to vote in a primary, the voter has a realistic expectation that his or her vote is going to count. And if it's not going to count and it's going to be subject to being canceled or affected by a back room somewhere, then why bother to hold the primary? And I do think the DNC lawyer was serious. There's a strong string of cases in the U.S. Supreme Court and the federal courts that meddle in what they call political questions. And that was what the DNC lawyer was relying on. He says, look, we're a political party. You, the courts, stay out of our business. So he says it's tongue in cheek now, but I think he was perfectly serious, or she. I don't know if it was a man or a woman.
I absolutely agree with you about how they say, but now that's become a big gotcha thing almost, right? Because this is part of the frustration coming out of the primary last year. Not that I know everyone's like, wow, we always got to relitigate the primary, but unfortunately, when we have these moments where we either have party bosses or major names that are basically blocking others' entry into the process, right, and into experience, we kind of have to talk about these things because that really is, it's the fruit of the poisonous tree. It's a prime example of what is wrong with the system itself. And I think you raise a really great point in pointing, and noting that they're trying to rely on, certain standard that has already existed in the law. But what is being shown is really problematic. And it rises to the level of voter suppression when you're talking about the primary process. Because if this type of behavior happened during a general election, we would be demanding DOJ investigations, like we, as in the nation as a whole, as in the party, would be demanding all these other, things that happen in legal remedies. Why should that not also apply in the primary process? It's very interesting.
That's why we have to get Kimberly Ellis elected as DNC chair here in California and me elected to the Congress to put these changes into effect. That's what I think.
No, absolutely, definitely. So, okay, so healthcare is, and I think pretty much everyone, healthcare is a major issue. And you have some other concerns and stuff that you discussed in your website. You touched on ending superdelegates, and I like when you have the phrasing, decriminalize mental illness on your website.
Yes.
That goes in hand with Medicare for all, with universal health care, but at the same time there is another layer to that, and can you just talk a little bit kind of about what your position is in terms of decriminalizing mental illness, kind of what you mean with that as well?
Yes, unfortunately, I have a very close family member who suffers from schizophrenia, and because of that, I've had to self-educate myself over the last 20 years about mental illness, mental health, psychopharmacology, the mental health care delivery system, and so on. And I could talk to you for a week about this, but the problem is that care delivery system on the medical side is so bad, and the incidence of people who have severe mental illness, a lot of them are on the streets, and it's a cause of homelessness. There's such a disconnect between what's needed and what's available that the only place to keep some of these folks safe is, where? Jail. And that's where they wind up. Because if they're psychotic and if they get put into a 3-day hold, it's a revolving door. They stabilize, out they go the door, and it's just a revolving door back and forth. I used to say that the largest mental health institution in the U.S., and I think it still might be, is the LA County Jail. They've got an entire jail devoted to people suffering from mental health, and that's wrong. No one chooses to be mentally ill, and we have to start treating these people more like we treat people with heart disease or diabetes or cancer. Than leprosy. They're not criminals, we say. So strong about it's very important to me.
Mm-hmm. 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 I absolutely agree, and even with all the issues that we've seen with the criminal justice system as well, and in so many instances where people are not people in law enforcement, where those in the justice system, whether they be actual police officers or correctional officers, often are not even equipped to deal with people who do have mental illnesses. So, I mean, having a focus on, like you said, decriminalizing mental illness and looking at treatment options and making sure people actually have what they need in terms of care, which goes into the Medicare for All, platform, is crucial. There are quite a few cases of people who have been, killed by officers one way or another, who have been people having, mental issues with mental illness that otherwise.
Oh, it's an epidemic. You hear about, unarmed mentally ill people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain that? How do you explain that? I mean, I got so involved in mental health advocacy, and I still am. Last summer, I addressed the National Convention of NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. Mm-hmm. Mental health advocate. I represent mostly pro bono people who have mental health issues and problems, and I'm glad to do it.
Awesome. So we have another question. We have a live another question from the Joseph asks. Jaffe says that we must stop accepting dirty corporate money, referring to your website. What kind of reforms do you have in mind in terms of, ending dirty money in politics, campaign finance reform?
Well, that's another huge issue. Mm-hmm. I got involved about 3 or 4 months ago. I'm the president of our little Democratic club here in the.
I think we froze again. Hold on. Oh, there you go. You're coming back. Okay, I think he froze in his end, but we're coming. It keeps going in and out. I know, and sometimes with modern technology, things are awesome, and then sometimes there are a few hiccups here and there. So when he unfreezes, I know he'll come back and give an answer to that. But this is the way with Fanoa. We've been talking with Stephen Jaffe. Oh, he probably lost his connection. Sometimes that happens. Internet. More reason why, net neutrality is a really huge issue that we need to focus on and make sure that we all have free and clear access to internet. And here we go. He's coming back on now. So, but this BeLive is also still in beta testing phase. There you go. You're back. So okay. Dirty corporate money.
Yes, I say my answer. The short answer is shine a very bright light on where this money is coming from and disclose to voters what the sources of money are, because that's the last thing that people with dark money want. That's why it's called dark money.
Right.
They don't want any light shown on it. The real getting money out of politics in general is another discussion, and there are a lot of people advocating for public financing of in some other countries. I think that's gonna take a while to get there, but I certainly have an open mind in considering that as well, and getting money completely out of politics at all.
So would you go to, I know in Arizona they have clean elections, so where you can have a matching system where you raise a little bit of money, from people in the community to support your candidacy, and then you have a matching effort from the state. So would you endorse something similar, where we actually have federally funded elections or something like that? Alternative?
I certainly would consider that, so long as I can be assured that the funds initially raised were raised in the right way and not not some billionaire, here's $500,000 or here's $1 million, now go get the state money.
Right.
Because that's just as dirty as what's going on now.
Absolutely.
It's a complicated problem, and there's some real constitutional issues with that, First Amendment issues, people's right to give money to the candidates of their choice. It's a complicated issue.
No, it definitely is. And there are some state level models. Like I said, Arizona, it's optional though, so oftentimes people opt out of using it. But a successful example I know from my interviews from last year, Athena Salzman and Isela, I can't remember Isela's last name, but their team, they ran as a slate. There were two that were running at the House level with the state, and then one who's running for Senate, and they ran as a clean election slate, and that's exactly what they did. They just got small donations from their community to qualify, and then there was a matching amount that was provided for the state, and they beat out, the establishment candidate that had the money that we're trying to get, the types of money and funding sources we're trying to get rid of.
Well, that shows you that it works.
Yeah, it can work. So there are examples in places where it can. I mean, look at Bernie Sanders, right? Bernie Sanders ran the campaign that he ran with a large amount of small donors, donating, $27 on average. That's the magical number. But we've seen examples of how this can work overall. So I definitely look forward to seeing what you would come up with as a member of Congress. But how do you see your ability, kind of standing against the status quo, the party as it stands right now? How do you see your ability to work within the party going forward?
Oh, I don't think I'm alone. I think that there's a genuinely significant wave of grassroots, you call it uprising, resistance, pick your word, within the Democratic Party. I don't think I'm alone in my views about trying to replace the ruling establishment here. I think when I'm elected, I'll arrive in Congress with a lot of colleagues who got here the same way.
Okay.
And
okay.
I think we will make a difference.
I absolutely am. I'm very optimistic about the wave of folks coming into 2018. Definitely. And we definitely need some new voices in that place. Where do you stay? So I'm gonna throw another one out there because this is something that's been kind of, a hot button issue lately. Choice, women's right to choose. Where do you stand on this topic in terms of?
Well, that's a no-brainer for me. I am the Way's right to choose. I don't understand backing off of that. I think, there are extreme situations. If you're 8.9 months pregnant, I don't think you can go in and have an abortion because that's not really an abortion. But within the structure of Roe v. Wade, and I think that should be left in place. I am not for any kind of dialing it back, walking it back, or overruling of Roe v. Wade. I hope that's clear.
Oh no, it's absolute. That is very clear. I mean, it's just this goes back into the conversation we were just the point you've raised earlier about the way people are making decisions. Policymakers are making decisions to conform with donors or whatever base out there they think they're trying to reach, possibly alienating others. But I think what you just said, and again, lawyer to lawyer, you just said the key thing. I think that made it very clear. You're not going to back away from Roe v. Wade. Like Roe v. Wade established, that's the law of the land. It's a right. It exists.
Right.
Why would we back away from it?
There's something else I know we're getting near the end here, but there's something else I want to mention here. Listening to Ms. Pelosi and Senator Feinstein and other established decided that the two most rare words people get asked questions, are you in favor of this? Do you oppose that? And instead of answering the question yes or no, you get a 5-minute long-winded speech which doesn't answer the question. It's an evasion, or they're changing the subject. I promise that when somebody asks me a yes or no question, I'm going to try to answer it yes or no, and if anybody wants me to elaborate on it thereafter, I'll be glad to do so. But a lot of questions are yes or no questions, and people who are asking them deserve a straight answer.
Absolutely. I mean, I think people appreciate that. It's understandable how maybe there are some things that you're not very familiar with at the time. But I mean, we've learned, with legal training, and you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, we've learned how to be able to honestly answer someone when you don't know without, messing up or stepping in or offending anyone. And so, I think people try to act like they're trying to appease everybody, but at the same time, we
That's
want
right. And the other thing
who stand for something. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing you don't hear besides yes and no, can't remember. So if you don't know something, say so. Don't pretend you know it because you're just going to make a fool of yourself trying to explain something that you don't understand. And if you can't remember something, say so. I mean, it's all about honesty.
So, there's someone who has a good experience with Nancy Pelosi and asking questions that she's not able to answer. Trevor Hill. Love Trevor. We got to interview Trevor shortly after the town hall incident. And, but that answer was just so emblematic of how out of touch, she and others are with the pulse of the country right now. I mean, heck, that
right.
Crazy person is in office. So, yeah. But just thinking about just what are some other things that you think that people really should know about you and your candidacy that we haven't already touched upon?
Well, I'm a novice politician. I've never run for office before, but I've got what I feel is a tremendous amount of life experience, and hopefully I've picked up some wisdom and good judgment along the way. So the fact that I never run for office, I think, is both I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think it's an advantage as much as it is a disadvantage. I don't think being a professional politician, that's kind of a backhanded compliment when you say that. So I think people, again, consider me and my candidacy on what I say and where I stand. And my record is obviously as a civil rights and employment lawyer, but that should be considered as well. I'd be glad to talk about that as much as anybody wants it.
Have there been any particular groups or community conversations or plans to have any type of town halls or anything coming up or anytime soon or anything like that?
Well, I'm dying to. I go to groups meetings. Last night I was at the San Francisco Bernie-crats.
Okay.
And I go to groups and I as time goes by, remember there's 13 months before the first vote.
Definitely.
So I'm sure I will visit dozens, if not 100, different groups. I would love nothing better. Believe me, my dream scenario is to get Ms. Pelosi to debate me because I know how to debate. And historically, her way of dealing with challengers is to ignore them. So we will see what happens in the future. But I certainly will engage as possibly can. After I come in second in the primary, one-on-one, there'll be some debates later.
Okay, so that's right. Because in California, the top two would then move on. Doesn't matter if party, the top two will move on. So even if it's two Dems, they'll both move on to the general election.
That's right. And in California, I think, but don't rely on this. You have to check this. I think the last time the Republican candidate came in fourth.
Oh, wow. There
were two Dems, then a third party, then a Republican candidate. But someone has to check me on that because I'm not positive, which is another thing politicians never say. I'm not positive, but I don't know for sure. So.
But you'll double check. We'll double check on that. I like that. But she is doing a town hall next week, correct?
Yes. She's doing. Well, I wonder why. Maybe because I hope she's paying attention to me, and she's not going to admit it, but I think she has to start addressing some of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
She has to start addressing some of the issues. Her town hall is going to be on TV. It's being by CNN. It might even be in your town, or maybe it'll be in DC. I don't know, but I will be watching it very carefully. I assure you.
Is your team should live tweet, like when Bernie used to live tweet the Republican debates. Your team should live tweet her town hall.
I believe that's been arranged.
Awesome. Very cool. So any final words before we close out?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate this opportunity and your courtesy.
Definitely.
And stay tuned. It's not a slam dunk. It's not a sure thing. It's an uphill road, no doubt about it. But I expect in June of 2018 and hopefully the following November to pull off a spectacular upset.
I love the underdog stories. Those are my favorite movies, and they always turn out so well. So, yes, I'm all for this. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this evening.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. So if you have just tuned in, I was just talking with Stephen Jaffe, and he is running for Congress in the 12th Congressional District in California against Nancy Pelosi. It's really exciting stuff, so definitely go check out his website, Jaffe for Congress, JAFFE, the number 4, Congress.com. He's also Jaffe for Congress on Twitter, and check him out on Facebook. Please like, share, support. We got to get good people representing the people into office. I mean, this is what it's all about, people. So I will bid you adieu. Thank you, and thank you all for watching. Good night.